Hello there, this is Adam from Alchemy Systems. Thank you all for joining. I think we've got a few people still coming in at the moment, but just so you all know, this is being recorded so that we can post it up, so anybody can review it later if they like to. So just as a general introduction, we're going to be going over Office 365 email and backing up Office 365 email and why you would need to do that. But before we get to that, just as an introduction, my name is Adam Warner. I'm a third line technical support at Alchemy Systems. I've been here for probably in the region of 5, 6 years now. And I'm quite a champion of Office 365, its various products, and just trying to help people understand what you can really do with the massive multitude of different components to it. I think you will have been contacted by Ryan Gregory, who's one of our sales chaps. If you've got any questions or want any quotes or anything like that, please contact him directly. If you mention that you've contacted him via the webinar, he should be able to give you a special discount up until the end of November. But I'll recap that at the end as well. So just as an overview, we're going to go up through why we need backups, generally relating to email, but I'll also cover off a couple of other more general purposes of them. Local versus cloud backups and what exactly we mean by a cloud backup. Quick check over Acronis Cloud, which is our cloud backup of choice, and how that fits in with Office 365. And then I'll give you a quick run through and a demo of an Office 365 mailbox and how Acronis Cloud email backups work with that. So, why we need backups? One of the main reasons these days, this is more of a general point, but it does also fit into the email bucket, is ransomware. Ransomware at the moment is probably the biggest threat to your data. Whereas it used to be things like hardware failures, ransomware these days is primarily the reason why you'd need to restore data. There are other bits and pieces involved, but generally the way they work is something will get onto your system and it will go through and encrypt all your data so you can't get access to it until you pay a ransom or you restore it from a backup. So backups are really your kind of get out of jail in terms of ransomware. It's very easy for a staff member to be tricked by some email phishing scams where you get an email that appears to be from a legitimate source but turns out to have requested some details, downloaded a dodgy PDF file that wasn't a PDF file, runs on your machine, gets access to everything the user has access to, and then goes and encrypts it. So backups are your primary defense against ransomware. Antivirus, anti-malware programs generally do a very good job these days, especially with some of the zero-day protection that the likes of Panda AD 360 provide. But to cover your own back, you should always have valid backups for any key business data. The other main problem at the moment is either accidental deletion. Somebody's deleted some data that they need back. They've deleted email about a particular product or a marketing thing, anything really, accidentally been deleted, can't find it, what do you do? With Office 365 out of the box, there are no backups as such. You have a couple of recycle bins, but after it's gone out of the deleted items, you get a couple of days grace period and then it's gone. So you don't really have any control over that directly. We've seen before where disgruntled staff or staff that are going off to start up their own businesses will go and maliciously delete data. These are known as inside threats. Again, they could just be they've been dismissed. They'll go through and delete all their mailbox data. Again, with a cloud backup email system, you can just go back and restore it as was. Doesn't matter how long ago it was, as long as you've got backups to that period, you can just go and restore it as it was or restore it to a different mailbox. Likewise, if you dismiss some staff after, I think, 30 days by default after you get rid of the Office 365 license for a member of staff, the mailbox will automatically be deleted, which obviously isn't great if you want to get stuff out of it and you've not got round to that yet. But if you've got an Acronis Cloud email backup of it, you can just restore it to somebody else's mailbox. And then finally, admin error as well, where we've seen somebody say be dismissed and then come back, or they've gone on leave for 6 months. The mailbox has been deleted because it wasn't in use. They come back after 6 months and need everything restored back. Well, if you've got it over in a cloud backup, you can just repopulate the mailbox with the email again. So our choice of cloud backup is Acronis. We've used it for our data center for several years now, and it's been the best product in terms of backups that we've ever used. And we've looked through a few. It's by far the easiest to administer. So really, I wanted to go over why you would want backups with Office 365. Out of the box, Office 365 holds your data in Microsoft's data centers. They do not take periodic backups of your data so you can restore it like you would if it was an in-premise server that you back up every night. They do have some safeguarding where the data is across multiple servers. So if a data center goes down, you shouldn't lose access to everything. So there are some safeguards in place, but there isn't a backup as such. They have resiliency to stop disasters happening. But if you deleted a mailbox, forgot about it, needed to get some stuff out of it, they wouldn't be able to help you with that. They have a couple of different levels with the email, which is if you delete an email, it goes into your deleted items. If the deleted items is flushed out, then you can restore them for 14 days after that period. But after that 14 days, they won't be able to help you. They do not keep a separate copy of it. So what Acronis Cloud email backups allows you to do is have your own independent copy of the data. So if you need to restore anything, you can search through, find the data you need and restore it. It also gives you some control back, which is in some ways a pro and some ways a con with online services like Office 365. You don't have to administer a lot of the features. It's done for you. You don't have to worry about the service. But as a result, you do lose a little bit of control. So having a cloud backup system helps bring that back to you. Also, we've got different levels of backups that you can do and different levels of restore. If you want to restore somebody's whole mailbox, you can do that. If you want to restore just an email or two, you can go through, find them. You can even read the content of the email before you restore it to make sure it's the right one. In general as well, backups are good for the continuity of the business. If you've got your own personal copy of the email outside of Microsoft's 365 system, then you know whatever happens, you have another copy and that is yours. With Microsoft's 365 system, we tend not to have any major problems with it, but you do get the occasional outage. If you want to move away from it, it's easier to migrate out if you've got a separate backup as well. And there's also some issues around with compliance. If you work in an industry where you have to keep email for a certain period of time, if you've got cloud backups that run back for 6 months, year, however long you need it, you know you're covered and you can always go back there if needs be. As well as the cloud side, I'm just going to cover quickly that there is an on-premise Acronis cloud backup product which covers database backups, mailbox backups, and mail backups. That falls kind of outside the scope of this, but I thought I'd bring it up just to make sure it's there as well. And then on the 365 side, Acronis Cloud Backups, they cover email, as we've discussed, but they do also cover OneDrive and SharePoint backups, which will be covered under a separate webinar, but is generally a one-stop shop for your mail and data if it's in Office 365. When the backups are actually done, all the data is stored in either a UK or EU data center. This is at the moment in the UK by default, but there is an option to change over if needs be. I know some industries have regulations that mean that the data has to stay in the UK. That's absolutely fine. We can do that. In terms of security, the backups are automatically encrypted with AES encryption. Just noticed the numbers there are slightly wrong that I need to change. The AES encryption is a military grade encryption, which is extremely hard to break. So as long as you have a good password on it, nobody will be able to get into your backups unless they get that password from you. So if you have any sensitive information in there, it won't be readable to Acronis, and it won't be readable to anybody else that just logs in with the account either. So finally, before we go on to the demos, I just wanted to discuss what exactly a cloud backup is. Historically, in the world of IT, when we talk about backups, it's tapes and disks and cartridges and things that go into the server and then get cycled around on a daily, monthly cycle, which has been fine historically. Now, as people's data requirements are growing, it's not quite so practical. So the idea of cloud backups is that your systems either locally or other services that you've got in the cloud, like Office 365, back up directly to another data center. So you've got a separate copy of it, but it's all there rearing to go. So cloud backups, the advantages are that there's no hardware costs up front for you. You don't need to buy any tapes, tape drives, or anything like that. There's no maintenance required, no disks to fail that need changing over, networking issues or anything like that. If you have a disaster locally and your internet connection goes down or your hardware fails locally, you have a copy of everything up in the cloud, so you can mitigate a lot of those sort of factors. And depending on how much your business is growing, you could buy a smaller amount of storage now and expand it over time. There's no real limits on the amount of storage you can have, but it does increase in price as the need grows. And finally, it's easily accessible. So if you need to restore something, there's been a disaster locally, you can't get into the office, you can just go onto the cloud portal, put in your encryption key, and download some data straight away. So we're going to run through a couple of quick demonstrations. Firstly, I'm just going to pull up a mailbox of a test account here. So this is a little Office 365 tenant, and we've got some emails. I've just searched for Mark 8, which is a product that they're talking about. If I just go and say delete this stress tests email here, that will go into the deleted items. If I then go and empty the deleted items folder, it'll give me a little warning, and we can hit delete all, and it's now gone. At this stage with Office 365, you do have a second chance to get your data back, which is this recover deleted items from folder, which will have the deleted items for the last 14 days. So you've got a little get out there. On the Acronis front, if I just open up this Acronis back up here. So I'm logged in to our Acronis Cloud portal. It's been set up with the Office 365 admin credentials, so it can access all of the mailboxes. And our user that we're logged in is Megan here. Every night there is an automatic schedule that runs to back up the mailboxes. If you want to run it manually yourself, you can just go into backup and then do run now, and it will run through and back up the data again. So if you've got, say, somebody that's about to leave and you just want to take a quick snapshot before they go, you can do that. In terms of the other options here, we can change the duration that the backup is held for. So by default, you've got 7 daily backups, so that's 1 every day. And then weekly backups become 1 every Monday. And then monthly backups become the first of every month. So you can go back up to 6 months and get the email from the first day of the month. And that you can adjust up and down as needed, but you might find that obviously the more duration you have, the more storage you'll use up. So there's a bit of back and forth required to find out exactly what's needed. But if you do have a regulation that means that you have to have the data for X number of months, X number of years, you can set it in there and you know it's just going to be the same for all of the mailboxes. If the mailbox has a mailbox archive, which is available, I think, on Exchange Online Plan 2 and I think Enterprise E3, which is basically in addition to your normal mailbox, you also have an archive mailbox, which I think gives you at least 1 terabyte. It may be more than that now of archive mailbox space, which is a little bit slower to get to, but it saves you having to delete everything. But that is separate, and so we just need to make sure that it's enabled there. When you set up this backup plan, you choose the encryption key, which you need to hang on to. If you lose the encryption key, you lose access to the data. So it's very, very critical that you keep hold of it, but give yourself a good encryption key to start off with. So going back to the Office 365 side, I deleted an email, which I now need to get back. So if I go and just go into Recover, I can either recover the whole mailbox or I can recover individual messages. If I choose to do individual messages, it will prompt me for the encryption key, which I'll just put in here. And then you can see it comes up showing all of the mailbox contents for that user. So you can go up to the top and do a search. So I'm going to do Mark 8. And it was the stress test one that we deleted. So you can either just show the content if you wanted to read something out of it or get some info out of it, you can do that. You can send it as an email out to somebody else, or you can click recover. And then when we click recover, we'll get a few more options. So we can put it in its original location, or we can choose to put it in a different mailbox. So it's going into Megan's at the moment, but if somebody had left and we wanted to restore it to a different mailbox instead, we can do that. And then secondly, you can choose a custom location. So if you don't want it to go back into the inbox, you want it to go into a folder for a project or something along those lines, you can just hit browse there and choose a separate location. But I'm just going to do it to the original location for the moment. So I'm going to hit start recovery, and we're going to say they shouldn't overwrite anything, but we're just going to say overwrite existing items for the moment. It's going to ask me for the encryption key again. And then after a few seconds, it will chug through and it's restored the data. If you want to see the logs at any point, if I just come back out to here, you can go through and see all the actions that have been taken with a particular mailbox. You can see how long the backups have taken, how long they've run for, what restores have been done, etc. And then if you have any alerts, you can see them down here. So if we now go back into Megan's mailbox, and if we just go back into the inbox again, and then we'll just do a search in a moment once it lets me, and do Mark 8. We can see we've got this stress test email back that I deleted earlier on. So you can see there's a very kind of seamless link between the two. If you want to restore something, it's quite easy and transparent to do. If you want to do a whole mailbox, that's not a problem either. Just going back to what I said earlier on, as well as the email side, there is also Office 365 group backups. If you've got any sites in SharePoint as well, you can back up the documents in those, and likewise you can back up the OneDrive documents for individual users if you need to, but that falls outside the scope of this webinar to some degree. But what I'll do then, if anybody's got any questions, if you'd just like to contact myself, awarner@alchemysys.net or Ryan Gregory@alchemysys.net, we can kind of get back to you on any individual points. If you've got any questions, please go ahead and ask them. If you'd like to get a special rate, please contact Ryan before the end of November. We've got a few deals on at the moment, and just reference that you watch the podcast, and we'll go from there. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks.